Hello, everybody. My name is Graham Elwood, and you are watching The Political Vigilante. I'm joined by a very special guest from Status Coup, Jordan Chariton. Jordan, how you doing today?
Hey, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
So we've been following you, and apparently you and a couple other indie journalists were shunned or pushed out or something by the Buttigieg campaign. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, so this is kind of a longer story, but to give you the short end, in December I went to South Bend with my cameraman to actually speak with voters, and residents, quite a shocking thing. While I was there, I broke a story about Mayor Buttigieg, who was still the mayor at the time, the fact that his police officers at the South Bend Police Department, while arresting a young black man, were playing out a scene from Django Unchained, the movie with Jamie Foxx, where KKK members were trying to lynch him. So Pete Buttigieg's police officers, they didn't realize that the guy who was getting arrested was live streaming it. Smart of him. And they started playing out a scene from the movie where KKK members are kind of joking because they're actually bickering because their hoods wouldn't fit. So I broke that. Buttigieg's campaign never responded. His police chief lied at first, said it wasn't South Bend police that were the police officers as part of that arrest. It was. So after that, we went to a debate night party at Pete Buttigieg's campaign headquarters in South Bend because I just wanted to interview his supporters, give them a fair shake. And it was really strange. I mean, they wouldn't let me shoot. They wouldn't let me take photos. They wouldn't let me interview anyone, meaning like they wouldn't let you do your job as a journalist. So of course, I wasn't going to, you know, uh, sit there and say, yes, sir. So I took photos. I was tweeting it out very quickly at that event. This was in December. Uh, you know, a young staffer came up to me. We see that you're tweeting. Anyway, after these two incidents, me breaking this story on his police officers and basically, glorifying Klan members while arresting a black dude, and going to this debate night party, they actually removed Status Coup from their press list. And by doing that, we're not getting emails from the campaign on what events he's doing, where they are, and we don't have the ability to apply for media credentials to cover them. So fast forward to New Hampshire, obviously he got a huge bump because the media falsely declared him the winner in Iowa. So another journalist forwarded me the emails that we were no longer receiving of his events in New Hampshire with the links that you could apply. So we applied for credentials. We were approved for credentials. So we head to an event in Nashua, New Hampshire, and it was pretty standard. This is what I do at other events. Before the event, I interviewed supporters. In fairness, there was a long line of people waiting to get into this middle school. So I interview about 6 or 7 people. And very quickly, I noticed a young female Buttigieg staffer basically hovering over my shoulder. I mean, I was moving up and down the line, and she was following wherever I went, she went. And, I really was. I mean, the toughest question I was asking these people is like, what's his top accomplishment in South Bend that really makes you think he'd be a good president? Because obviously I knew they wouldn't be able to answer because there is not many accomplishments. So after being followed for a half hour by this young female staffer, I was done outside and I went up to her and I just said, like, you're not being subtle. And she answered, yeah, I know. So that was kind of strange. I'd never, even at a Trump event, I'd never really had one of the staffers like just shadowing me for that amount of time. Then we go up to the
Well,
press
Trump
desk.
isn't a former Navy intelligence officer that's been handpicked by the deep state. So,
Right.
sorry.
Exactly. Then we go up to the press desk inside. We check in. Our names are on the list. They give us a name tag, which I had also never gotten before. So the name tag was basically like our media credential. They put us in an area with other press because we had to wait to get into the gymnasium. Then they, after a little while, they call U.S. press, come to the front of the line. You know, the local press had to wait. So we entered the gymnasium. I do more interviews before Buttigieg started talking. And honestly, it was standard. I mean, I wish I could lie and say like, oh, I got him. You know, it was tense. You know, it was just very, you know, boring interviews. I didn't really want to go too crazy because I was in a room of old neoliberals. So after I'm done with the interviews, my cameraman and I kind of moved to the back because the mayor was about to start speaking, and now a different female staff. It's always female staffers with the Buttigieg campaign. A different staffer comes up to me and says, do you have credentials or did you sneak in? And at this point, I was just annoyed because I'm being followed outside by one of your staffers while I'm just interviewing people. Now you're asking me if I snuck in. So I said, you guys gave me this name tag. So anyway, I got a little testy. This one walks away. Then my cameraman, who by the way, happens to be the only black guy you could, you know, in a mile's view. There's no black people in this gymnasium. I mean, it is New Hampshire, but you know, I did see some African-Americans at Bernie events. My cameraman goes to get equipment so that we could go live. And all of a sudden I see a different female staffer coming my way. She comes my way with my cameraman not too far behind. And she tells me we need to leave. And then my cameraman says she just ripped my credential off my jacket. So at this point, I went a little off because it's just harassment at this point. And I didn't quite understand at first, but this woman actually went up to my cameraman, again, African-American, didn't say anything, just ripped his name tag off, and then says, I don't think you're supposed to have credentials. So I said to her, what is the issue? She says to me, we're hearing reports that you were disrupting people online outside. And I said, disrupting by doing interviews? I mean, obviously what she's talking about is that they had someone following us outside who must have not liked my questions. I don't know.
Right.
And moved it up the flagpole because I saw that woman after I said to her, you're not being subtle that you're following us. I saw her making calls. So I went off on this particular staffer because this was now the third person, you know, on us. And at this point I started tweeting, and the tweet, I was basically tweeting, we're being harassed here by Buttigieg's campaign. And then I'd say 2 or 3 minutes later, a different staffer comes up to me. And this one, I don't know if it's because she saw my tweet was taking off or just that she has some common sense. She was nice, calm. I said to her, do you know that your staffer just went up to my cameraman and ripped his credential off his jacket? You know, is this how you treat the press? And I don't know. I don't know if she was being sincere or just trying to diffuse the situation, but she apologized, blah, 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 blah. The whole thing was very bizarre. I mean, I've been to God knows how many Trump events. I've been to really crazy protests, police brutality protests, oil pipeline protests. So I've had, you know, I've been yelled at by handlers. I've been, you know, you definitely, whether it's corporate representatives or political operatives that will yell at you and be nasty. I've had that at Trump events, but I never really experienced basically having this merry-go-round of staffers coming up to us, either following us as we're doing interviews, coming up asking if we snuck in, even though we're on your list of approved people. So the whole thing was bizarre, and it is a pattern because, again, they removed us from the press list in December because we had the temerity to do a factual story that didn't look good for it. So, yeah, that's what happened.
Wow. I mean, this just like, I mean, it's not shocking that he's doing these tactics because, you know, a year ago he met with Clinton people. And so this feels like it's out of their playbook of just controlling the narrative and controlling the story. But I mean, you know, of course, he's a veteran, and I'm the only one who served in Afghanistan. He always says this on the debate stage. And then here he is just like, nah, freedom of press. We'll just shove this out the door. Have you had any, since you've talked about this on your show and since you've gone on Twitter and stuff like this. Have you heard anything back from their campaign?
Well, no. So after we left. We didn't get kicked out. They told us we could stay, but at that point, this is like, I don't want to stay. I actually want to get the story out of what you just did to us. So we left. I emailed his press secretary, Kris. In fairness to him, I mean, it was 2 days before the New Hampshire primary, so maybe he didn't even know what happened. So I explained what happened to him. I said, your campaign, particularly the mayor, owes my cameraman an apology. I mean, you do have an optics problem already with the Black community, and your campaign just, I don't want to go as far as like assault, but you don't have a right to put your hands on any journalist, white or Black. But do you not have any? Does your campaign? They didn't come up to me and try to rip my name tag off. The only difference between me and my cameraman Jamal is our race. So I, added a few questions in there, and he did not respond. And to tell you the truth, there is a pattern with the Buttigieg campaign from my time in South Bend, and now this, of basically doing whatever it takes to just keep optics looking a certain way. And this is not unique to them. Obviously, political campaigns want to keep good optics, but I've never seen it quite like this. It is very, very controlled. I mean, when I went into that debate watch party in December, right away, they said, well, just so you know, there's not going to be any photos allowed, video, no interviews. And I said, but this is a publicly listed event. It doesn't say no journalism. It doesn't say off record. It doesn't say, closed press, whatever. And they literally said, we want this to be a safe space for our supporters, a safe space. And then a very, type A staffer went up and repeated that during the debate because they saw me taking photos, because I'm not going to listen to this crap. I mean, basically they didn't want anything shown, because in South Bend, where the mayor is, I mean, maybe there was 24 people at this debate watch party, so they were probably embarrassed. But it's very self-contained. To me, I'm a journalist, but here's a simple thing. I just broke that your cops were basically imitating KKK members while arresting a Black dude. Mm-hmm. I reached out to you. A simple thing would be, oh my Lord, thank you for bringing this to our attention. The mayor's going to look into it, and there will be repercussions, blah blah blah. Even if they don't mean it,
issue a statement or something.
Right? They don't respond. They don't respond to that. It seems to me, because we're not the New York Times. We are growing. Statuscoup.com/join. By the way, we are growing, but we're not the New York Times. So they probably, their operating principle is probably, well, don't address it, and let it die out, because it's not like corporate outlets are going to pick up the fact that this is going on in South Bend. It's certainly not like, he probably didn't respond to me the other day when all this happened in New Hampshire, because they didn't expect any other outlets to pick it up. It did kind of go viral on Twitter, but they still didn't respond, and that kind of just shows you they don't care. They don't care whether a Black journalist was disrespected or going further, inappropriately touched. They don't care that, they don't have to like my outlet, but they approved my credentials. So
right.
It's not like I snuck in. And it does, I'm no expert on the CIA, but it does have a very controlled, from the top mentality his campaign does, of just control, keep optics a certain way. And it's bizarre. Not that our current president is a friend of the media, but I've never seen anything like this, where from the top down you have all of this, contain the message. You have somebody hovering over me as I'm just asking people, what's the big accomplishment of the mayor that you like? The whole thing was bizarre, and I don't think he's going to win the nomination, but people need to start thinking about. If this is how he treats like a startup who does, accurate coverage, how would he treat larger outlets that, he doesn't like?
I mean, the thing that it points to so many things. First of all, I mean, he has lied, about having a bigger black support than he does. And the corporate media, they just give him a pass on this. They just let him slide on this. And then all this fake surge thing, the Iowa caucus thing, that, I mean, you would think that the Buttigieg giving money to Shadow, the company that made the app, you would think the corporate media would be all over that. It's so blatantly corrupt. But this is par for the course. Like there's no, I'm shocked by the cheating, and then I'm also not shocked. Like they will stop at nothing. And he is so clearly, Iowa told me, and I think everybody, that's like, oh, he's the deep state pick. The corporate, the Kamala and, Robert Francis O'Rourke, who's not Latino at all, and all these other people, they're like the corporate Democratic picks, but he's the deep state pick, man. And the way he's operating, like you're talking about, this just reeks of the intelligence community controlling the message and all this other stuff. And which it's sort of, again, it's shocking, but it isn't, because the ruling class here is they're being exposed at every turn, and they're doubling down, like this fake Klobuchar surge. And I mean, that's a whole nother thing. But I want to talk about, has any corporate media outlet covered this at all?
Fox News, of all places. Obviously we know Fox tends to, by its own osmosis, they're going to cover if a Democrat is doing something bad. So
sure,
that's baked into the cake. But yeah, journalists from there reached out to me. I spoke with them. They asked good questions. They wrote a piece on it on their website. I thought it was very fair. And other than that, a couple, smaller outlets, but no. And I did send this to Mr. Reliable Sources, Brian Stelter of CNN. He responded, thanks, I'll take a look. I haven't been invited on. So it's very troubling. And you want to know something? To me, really what this reeks of is, because Pete Buttigieg and the other, and I'm sure, if, for example, U.S. Press Tracker, which is an organization that tracks press threats, reached out to me, to find out more, and I spoke with them. So they said, all right, well, we're going to reach out to the campaign. I'm sure the campaign, their response is, well, they're not, that's not a real journalist. That's a Bernie bro pretending to be a journalist. Right. And that's kind of how they get around it. But the bottom line is, whether you think I'm a Bernie bro or whatever, I was credentialed at your event. I don't just cover politics. I've broken major stories on Flint. Status Coup has broken major stories outside of the campaign. And frankly, if what you're saying is somebody, media that is not compliant and doesn't just do stenography for you, meaning adversarial press, which I think The Intercept is part of that, Democracy Now!, several other outlets, if to you will remove them from your press list, you will basically follow and harass them at your events. To me, that does reek of what you're saying. That is how intelligence works. And I will say, look at the pattern. You have it in the span of a week, 2 days before the Iowa caucus, the Des Moines Register spikes its poll for the first time ever because Pete Buttigieg's campaign complained, citing one instance where somebody was called by the pollster, Buttigieg wasn't offered as an option, and as a result, we're spiking the entire poll. Well, that poll showed he was in third place, distant third place. Then you have, on the night of the caucus, the app, which I was reporting before the caucus, literally nobody had even been trained how to use it. So whether intentionally they were trying to create a chaotic situation or just they're grossly incompetent, why do you think the DNC and the Iowa State Democratic Party were not disclosing the developer of this app? Could it be because Buttigieg's campaign paid them $42,000, or that the app was run by a bunch of Hillary Clinton staffers? I mean, if you want to give them the benefit of the doubt, say it's not corrupt, it's unethical not to disclose that, then we have CNN, all of these outlets basically giving him hundreds of millions of dollars of free advertising in the 5-6 days between Iowa and New Hampshire. I mean, that is a gift to a candidate being declared the winner of the Iowa caucus when there's like over a quarter of the results that are not even out there yet, when there's error after error after error being shown on Twitter. That's why he went up 7 to 10 points in New Hampshire, because people who are just tuning in, most people are not political diehards like you and I, are just tuning in and being like, oh, that guy won? Oh, I like him. Let me go to his rally. So and then let's not forget, it was Buttigieg's campaign complaining when the Iowa caucus results, Bernie was starting to close in to taking the lead. Buttigieg's campaign called the Iowa State Democratic Party, and then Tom Perez comes out. So it's just a lot of this campaign of a no-name mayor, snapping its fingers, and major pollsters jumping as high as they want.
Oh, yeah.
The Iowa State Democratic Party, the DNC, and I broke a story weeks ago. I mean, look at his donor list from when he first ran in 2010. It's all Obama world donating to him. So it seems that this guy was groomed a decade ago, and you're starting to see, the fruit blossom.
Yeah, I mean, it just doesn't make sense that a small town mayor just rises this quickly. And that speech he gave the night of the Iowa caucus, it was pre-written. You have shocked the world, Iowa. It's like, you haven't won anything. We haven't even had one single report yet. And he's like, I won, which it just reeks to me of intelligence rigging. To me, it's just like Juan Guaido. He's just a Juan Guaido popping in from South Bend. And the fact that the mainstream media, that has intelligence people on as their military experts all the time, it doesn't shock me, because he'll be good for the war machine. So I mean, man, I really appreciate
you look at the final one. You look at the final coordination. He's doing a CNN town hall with Chris Cuomo minutes before the town hall. This is the nationally televised town hall, a couple days before New Hampshire. Minutes before, the Iowa State Democratic Party, puts out its final results, and it shows him with the most delegates. And then Chris Cuomo leads it, saying, "Breaking news: the Iowa State Democratic Party shows you winning." And the crowd is chanting. If that's not an intelligence operation, then that is a coordinated operation between a political machine in the DNC and the state party and a cable news network. So. Yeah, I think it's very troubling. And frankly, whether you're progressive, whether you're neoliberal, conservative, whatever, if you are going to look the other way when journalists are harassed, if you're going to look the other way when journalists are purged off of campaigns' email lists where they can't even cover your events anymore because they dare do a factual story. It's not like his campaign reached out to me, hey, this story's not right. And then we could have a discussion and I'll correct it if I got something wrong. They just buried it and purged this off the list. So I think people should be very, very concerned, because this kind of reeks of how Obama was. People should remember Obama was no friend of transparency or freedom of the press either. And a lot of people see similarities in Mayor Pete and Obama. So I think it's very concerning. There's different levels of fascism. You got the loud and proud version of Trump, and this is a creeping, subtle version, but this is the precursor to fascism, censorship, and propaganda.
Yep. I mean, this is, it's so funny. Everybody on the left is always like critical of Trump because he says the media is fake, because anytime they call out Trump's lies, it's fake news. And then here we have Wine Cave Pete doing the exact same thing. And this really speaks to is the intelligence. That's the permanent state. Nobody's elected. They're always in power. It doesn't matter Republican or Democrat in the White House. They control things, and that's who they want. They absolutely want this guy in there to, at the very least, and this fake narrative of the Cuomo going, oh, just in, wow, this kid out of nowhere. Like they're trying to play on that come from behind win thing in America, and it is pretty troubling. And anyone that's going to be critical of Trump and his treatment of the media has to be critical of this. They have to be.
Yeah.
So, well, Jordan, thank you so much for taking time out today. Where can people check out Status Coup and help out what you're doing?
Yeah, we're off to Nevada next. So as far as I know, Status Coup has been in the field covering the campaign more than any other outlet. So we're going to cover Nevada because let's expect the shenanigans there. That's going to make Iowa look like child's play, in my opinion. So YouTube, Status Coup, definitely subscribe and support us. We are not taking any money from the bankers, the fossil fuckers, big pharma, big real estate, Silicon Valley. We are funded by you. So you can become a member for as low as $5 a month. statuscoup.com/join, get bonus content, behind the scenes, all that good stuff. And yeah, we are really, really excited. From Iowa to New Hampshire, we've grown. I think we've added like over 400 paid supporters. So go figure, when you actually go in the trenches and report, people really like it. They like non-corporate propaganda and real reporting. So we're really enjoying our time in the field, and we will be in Nevada next week.
Yeah, Jordan brings up a great point. Everybody watching, this is how, his show, my show, we don't get money from corporations. We don't get money from the CIA. If we did, I'd be in a much better studio. And this is what you're doing. You're supporting. So when you support Status Coup, we're not going to get this kind of reporting from anybody else that's not there. So support what he's doing, support what we're doing here. Thank you so much, Jordan, for taking time out. And we'll check back with you after Nevada, and we'll see what kind of stuff you uncover there. Please come back on the show.
Thanks, Graham.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Hey, everybody, like, share, and subscribe. Hit the bell notification button. Even if you've done it before, YouTube is undoing that and they're unsubscribing people. Make sure you're subscribed. Share the videos out on your social media. Support what we're doing at patreon.com/Graham Elwood, rockfin.com/Graham Elwood, and come see Ron Placone and I on the road for the Progressive Comedy Tour. February, we're in Tucson and San Francisco. March, we are in Florida, Orlando, Tampa, and Miami. April, we are in Seattle and Portland, Oregon. And May, we are in Indianapolis, Detroit, and Cleveland. All my tour dates are at grahamelwood.com. We're probably coming to a city near you. Join us. You show up alone, you leave a part of a community.